What is the level of opportunity that an Alcobev company today has in a market like India?
For example, between 2020 and 2023, premium spirits in India has grown at a CAGR of almost 40% compared to globally at about 7-8%.
From a perspective of a brand owner, Bacardi launches a new product. Then how do they take it to the market, especially considering the regulations?
Family, founders, mentality, and fearless. And that remains consistent across.
Am I correct in understanding that that is a whiskey that has been 100% made in India?
It was tested, researched, developed for India by India.
What is the objective behind a brand to actually create variants?
If you have a look at the cocktail list and you didn't tell me I was in Guwahati, I would have said I'm probably a London or a New York. That's the kind of cocktails that were being offered.
Now, do you know that 70% of what you pay for your alcohol bottle actually goes to the government? Now, in my conversation, I have decoded this with the India Bacardi MD Vinay Golikeri, and we have not just spoken about these sort of facts, but also decoded what is Bacardi's philosophy, how they make products, why do they make variants, how popular is Bacardi Breezer, and why do they make those Breezer variants as well, and a lot more. Now, all of this is possible because we published this magazine called Ambrosia, which is Asia's largest circulated magazine and also the most popular and oldest magazine in the industry. We're in the 32nd year of our publication, and also it's a product which is extremely close to my heart. Now, what's interesting is that we also organize something called Inspirit 2025, which is in the 20th year of celebration, and it is coming in March to Gurgaon, which is at Le Méridien. The tickets for that are going to be here. It is a great evening with a lot of music, a lot of fun, great food, and very importantly, very good cocktail and spirits. So take a look at those tickets, bring your squad. It'll be great fun, I assure you that. And of course, if you like our work, then please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Do make sure that you share this with all the Bacardi lovers especially, and see you in the next one. Hi Vinay, and welcome to Expert Talk with Bhavya Desai. How are you doing?
Great, and thank you, Bhavya, for the invitation to be part of Expert Talks with you. It's an opportunity for us to talk all things Bacardi and spirits in India, so I look forward to this session.
Great. Really excited about this conversation. The reason is because I think Bacardi in general is, synonymous with a lot of experiences. So from that perspective, I think I'm really hoping that this conversation is able to create value for a lot of our viewers, give them like good, deeper insights about the industry as well. And then obviously I would love to know from Bacardi's perspective, a lot of the questions that I've had in mind for a very long time. So having said that, first up, it's been almost 2 decades that Bacardi has now been in India, right? At any point of time, if you think, then please just correct me if my information is
It's close to 27 years.
27 years, yeah. Okay. How do you think that journey has been?
I think it's been a great journey. We started in 1997-98 with Bacardi rums. Then in the early 2000s with Breezer, ready to drink. And since the mid 2010, we've also brought in some of our bottled in origin brands. So Grey Goose, Bombay Sapphire, Doer Scotch. Most recently, a few years ago, Patron Super Premium Tequila. So it's been a great run. And Bacardi is in India. India is one of the key emerging markets for Bacardi globally. Right. And in that sense, it's been a great run.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I mean, because for a product, I actually want to do a separate conversation. But you mentioned about like it's been a great run in that respect. What is the level of opportunity that an Alcobev company today has in a market like India?
That's a great question, Bhavya. I think let me address that in two parts. I think one is the macroeconomics of India,
right,
and the other is the spirits potential of India. So if you look at the macroeconomics, India from being the number 13th largest economy, today the number 5th, and expected to be the number 3 economy by 2030. If you look at household incomes, there were 77 million households in 2020, which were upper, mid, and high. By 2030, that's more like 177 million households. So there's rising affluence. We also have a very strong demographic dividend in India. We add about 20 million legal drinking age consumers every year. So in the next 5 years, that's close to 100 million LDA plus consumers.
Right.
A very young population. The median age is about 28 years old. And if you compare that with, let's say, a USA, more like 40, or even a China, more like 40. So a very young
Consumer
audience.
base.
And that's really the macroeconomics of it. If I look at spirits, India is the number one market by volume for international spirits, number two by value. Spirits are growing well ahead of global spirits consumption in India.
Right.
Particularly if you look at a few points, premium spirits. For example, between 2020 and 2023, premium spirits in India has grown at a CAGR of almost 40%, compared to globally at about 7-8%. So that's 5x of global growth. So this growth in spirits is coming largely through premiumization or premium products, and the opportunity. If you look at globally, premium plus products are about 50% of spirits. In India, it's 5-6%. So the headroom to premiumize is significant.
Right.
And then lastly, if I look at the spirits infrastructure, you look at, we're sitting in Gurgaon, and you look at some of the stores here in Gurgaon, browsable, modern. If you look at some of the bars, Indian bars are featuring in Asia's best, world's best bars. There's been a sea change in the retail environment, both bars and off-trade. Now, when you put all that together, the macroeconomics, the young audience, rising affluence, premiumization in spirits, the retail infrastructure, I think that's really what makes India an exciting opportunity for Bacardi.
Understand. It's very interesting, actually. There are 2-3 things that you spoke about which I kind of want to get at. But first up, I mean, you're saying obviously there is a younger audience which is kind of coming into the legal age over a period of time. I mean, in the next, I think, 5 years, it will still continue to keep growing. Where would you say Bacardi products are kind of placed at in terms of like your consumer base today?
Okay. So one of the things with this legal drinking age plus consumer is they are a lot more experimentative. I talked about, the whole bar scene that has changed, particularly in the metros and tier 2 towns. With that experimentation, we're seeing a real evolution of the cocktail culture. And I'll give you an example, and it's not just in the Mumbais and the Delhis. I was in Guwahati a few weeks ago, and we went to this bar, Teramaya, owned by Rachit. And if you have a look at the cocktail list, and you didn't tell me I was in Guwahati, I would have said I'm probably a London or a New York. That's the kind of cocktails that were being offered. And the place was packed, and I had a look around, and 9 out of 10 tables were having cocktails. So for us at Bacardi, if you look at our portfolio, Bacardi rums, largest standard plus rum. You look at Bombay Sapphire, the number one premium gin. You look at Grey Goose, the number one super premium vodka. Dewar's, the fastest growing scotch. Patron, number one super premium tequila. So our products are really positioned at the heart of this cocktail culture. And therefore for us, this is an interesting opportunity to really drive our brands, leveraging and growing this cocktail culture.
Right.
And that comes really with the younger audiences that we're seeing.
Understand. But would I be right to say that then it is a little bit more on the premium side as well, because that is also the consumer that you're looking at?
Absolutely. I think, when you look at our products, the vast majority of them are in the premium space. Bombay Sapphire premium, Grey Goose super premium, Patron again super premium, even Dewar's, Dewar's 12 and above premium. And again, Bacardi rums. So if you look at where our products play, they're largely in the standard premium and above segment.
Understand. You spoke about premiumization. Now, naturally, that has pretty much been the mantra for the industry for the past like 3 or 4 years, or I would say maybe even 5 years. How long do you think that wave of premiumization is something which can the manufacturers ride on in India?
given where we are, if you look at globally, 50% of spirits are premium and above, and in India it's only 5. So I think we have a long runway for growth on premium. Is it going to be a straight line? No, probably there'll be ups and downs, but the longer term trend I feel is there to stay for a while. I think it's aided by a few factors. Rising affluence. One thing that we're seeing is people are drinking less often, but drinking better. So drinking less but drinking better, and we've seen this now for more than 5 years. Second, you look at a category like Scotch. Whiskey is, India's whiskey country, and you look at Scotch. Again, the premium plus segment really accelerating, and in that, Doers is really making big steps in terms of gaining share. The retail environment, bars, etc. So I feel there is a lot of runway for growth on premium.
Understand.
I don't think it's a flash in the pan. I think it's for India particularly. I think it's here to stay.
Okay. As a brand owner, if you can give our viewers an idea of what is the difference between, from your perspective, what is the difference between a premium product and a product which is, I would say, a little bit more affordable? How does that economics wise kind of sit,
So when you say economics, how do you mean?
What I mean to say, like, is the reason why most manufacturers are looking towards going more premium is because there is a better bottom line and they're able to offer much better quality in that price to price to value ratio. So from that perspective, as compared to something which is probably be a little bit more.
So I think one of the things that when I say premiumization, I say consumers are trading up. And that's happening across price points.
Right.
So if earlier you drank a 1,500 rupee product, you're now drinking a 2,500 rupee product. So this trading up phenomenon is happening across price points, whether it's at the lower end or at the upper end. Number one. Number two, I think a lot of the spirits industry and a lot of the brands are really based on image. And one of the things that is really driving this, I believe, also is product quality, really, top quality products. And to your point, yes, I think investing in a quality product allows you to command that premium in the market. But at the same time, I think there's also, the advertising and promotional support that you are able to do with the premium product. And I think those two factors, one, better product intrinsics, two, a better marketing proposition, is helping drive this premiumization trend.
Understand. And from business economics point of view, I'm circling back to this, but I'm just trying to understand, like, I know that it comes with a lot of what you call investment as well, because you are looking into like more premium products. But from an economics point of view as well, if you can just draw a little bit of an example.
Oh, absolutely. I think when you look at the profitability of a standard versus a premium or even a bottled in origin product, naturally, the bottled in origin products, the premium products are definitely have a better margin. But it also comes with the flip side of you need to invest more to build the brand.
So it is great in terms of course, the opportunity, because as you mentioned about the macroeconomics in India, but is it also a very challenging market?
The understatement of the decade, probably. Look, India is, in terms of spirits, a highly regulated, complex market.
Yes.
I often tell people who visit Bacardi India that it's like dealing with 28 countries rolled into one, because alcohol is a state subject. And therefore, every state has its own set of regulations, its own set of policies, policies that change every year, route to market decisions that, impact the route to market every few years. So absolutely, I think, it's a very complex web of regulations that we have on spirits in India.
Right. Do you think in a different scenario, if there would have been, I think it's unlikely, but a singular policy for the country, would it be better, or would it even be possible?
That's it, absolutely. A singular, I think there are two things that, as an industry we would look for. One is ease of doing business. I think that's a big part of what would help.
Mm.
And secondly, consistency. So when you have these two at play,
Mm.
that's when an industry can really thrive.
Mm.
So I would say, consistency in policy, um, and enabling ease of doing business. I think those two will really go a long way, in driving further growth for the industry, further revenue for the government.
Mm.
Yeah, so I look forward to both of those.
Right. Has it, but in the past 4 or 5 years, where certain regulations have changed, where a lot of things have become digital and XYZ, has it still become a lot better than what it used to be before? Am I right to say that?
Yes, things have improved. Bhavya. For example, if you look at a few of the states, they have become very progressive in terms of online approvals and so on. But we have a long way to go. A long way to go.
Understand. From a perspective of a brand owner, how is that? Can you just paint a picture for us that, say, for example, if Bacardi launches a new product, then how do they take it to the market, especially considering the regulations? Like, does it have to get registered into each state and stuff like that? If you can just take us through that journey for the viewers, it'll be great.
So I think a couple of things. One is any product that you create needs to be compliant with the food safety laws, FSSAI. That's one aspect. The second is you need to register the label and the product in every state. And that is really, in many cases, a challenge because some states don't have an automatic online approval. You have to wait for, the window when they accept new products. Similarly, you've got to register the pricing. And again, many states allow you to do that any point in time, but equally there are many that you've got to wait for a certain window of opportunity to submit your pricing. So it's a few amongst many challenges. But like I said, the opportunity in India is amazing. When you look at the macroeconomics, when you look at the spirit's potential. So for us, we've had a few successful launches over the last few years,
Right.
With new products, which we're very proud of.
Right. But do you think that from a perspective of a business like Bacardi or some of the other bigger manufacturers, naturally, because there is a set platform fundamentals, it's a lot easier and can be difficult for someone who is probably just starting out?
I think for us, like I said, we've been in the business in India for 27 years.
Right.
And really that has helped set up our base. So some of the processes I refer to are things that we have done over the last 20 plus years. And yes, therefore we have systems and we have mechanisms internally to address those. But equally, let me talk about another area of regulatory complexity, which is pricing. Several states have not given price increases for years.
Yes.
Now, what this does as a brand owner is, there is inflation. There is inflation, whether it's spirits, whether it's packaging material, etc. And that therefore, impacts our ability to invest. And that's what we want to do. We really want to invest in the market to drive growth. Now, over since 2020, our investment levels have increased by 60%, whether it's manufacturing or advertising and promotions. In order to be able to invest more, manufacturers need to be able to, take price up. And we're not saying, discriminately, we're saying in line at least with inflation. So we're really looking forward to a lot of state governments at least having an inflation-based price increase mechanism annually.
Why do you think that I was kind of hoping that you bring up the pricing conversation, and why do you think that they are not willing to do that?
I think at a couple of levels. I think number one, there is a sense, if you look at alcohol as a percentage of state revenues, it is a significant component. And I suppose, some of the governments are concerned that price increases might suppress that revenue. Now, for premium products, our experience has been different. So I suppose that is one of the challenges.
But in terms of like, would you call just breaking down? Say, for example, a product is X is 100 rupees. Let's just take an example. If a product is 100 rupees today, which is at MRP, let's use an example of maybe say a Tasmac. Okay, and what is that breakdown of that 100 rupees that goes, what you call, filters down to what actually comes to the brand, because that will give them an idea in terms of, like, I want the viewers to get an idea of what is that parity in that breakdown, which is the reason why manufacturers are also looking for that price to drive up.
I won't be able to give you a TASMAC number per se, but
Mhm.
I can tell you overall, and I'm giving
Okay,
you a
maybe.
very rough number.
Mhm.
But for a product that's, let's say, an MRP of 100,
Mhm.
just the taxes and duties are about 70.
Wow.
Anywhere between 65 to 70%. And then you have, each level of the chain, which is, the wholesale, the retail, and then start the other way, the retail, the wholesale, and then the brand owner. So
Right.
um, it is extremely high. I think, you know I don't have a comparison versus other countries, but I can
Mm.
say it's definitely amongst the highest. I mean, let me give you an example. Um, a bottle of Bacardi Carta Blanca, for example, if you look at the MRP or the RSP, in the Western world, they say RSP, retail selling price.
Right.
Um, in a lot of products, the MRP in India is higher than the retail selling price in the West.
Mm.
Um, but our taxes are significantly above what is in the West.
Right.
So I think, it's probably one of the higher taxed products.
Wow. So in that 100 rupees, then if 70% is nearly taxed, then what is the bottom line?
70% is a tax amount.
Right. That's what. Yeah.
All taxes and duties.
Right. So I'm assuming that, what is the bottom line then for a manufacturer?
I won't be able to share that.
I mean, give or take. What do you call what I'm trying to get at is, the other margins, like, really that.
I think the best way to address this is probably, look, one of the things, and I go back to the first question around, pricing.
Mhm.
And what we're asking for as an industry is for governments to, have at least an inflation linked pricing mechanism,
Mm.
because cost of goods is going up, and our aim is to invest to grow.
Mm.
We've been in the country 27 years, and we want to be there for another 100, 150 more. um, we need to invest to grow the brand. We need to invest, to kind of help with, for example, with our co-packing locations, with our manufacturing units. We would like to do more of that. Uh, and in order to do that, price becomes an important lever.
Right. Would you say, I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Would you say then, in today's day and environment, the being in the Alcobev industry is a profitable business?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I understand for a Bacardi, but, like, for overall in the industry in
I
general.
won't be able to comment on others.
Right.
But look, I think the fundamental for us in Bacardi in India is to really, if I go back to our purpose, Bacardi's purpose is really to make moments matter. And the reason we're in India is because of, the amazing opportunity to grow the business. So that's really the fundamental driver for us. How can we be an engine for, how can Bacardi India be an engine for growth for Bacardi globally? So in 2019, we set out our vision um, to grow 6x in the next decade, and we're on track with that. So yeah, for us, it's really a growth opportunity that we see, Bhavya.
If it's a perfect scenario of what the regulatory environment of most of the brand manufacturers are envisioning or expecting or looking at, then the level of investments and the level of opportunity, as well as the level of growth for Alcobev companies, would be far more across
Absolutely.
the.
Absolutely. I think with improvements in ease of doing business, with consistency in policy, absolutely.
Understand. From a perspective of how is it different? I mean, I know that you've been in different roles in Bacardi, of course, as well, prior to your current profile, and some of them have been in the international markets. How is it different in that respect, from a market perspective, to what you see in India and what you see internationally?
Um, Look, with my limited experience, I'll try and answer that. I think my experience before this was in the global travel retail business,
Right.
or GTR, Global Duty Free. So very different business.
Mm-hmm.
Zero duty, zero taxes, right? So it's a very different operating environment.
Right.
Also diverse. You had travelers at one end from Auckland, at the other end San Francisco, and at one end you had the Nordics, let's say Denmark or Stockholm, and all the way down to Cape Town. So very diverse audience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think when you look at some commonalities, um, the same sense of premium, driven slightly differently, because when people travel, they're a little more open to spending. So you find that people trade up. If they normally consume a particular category, they tend to trade up in that category in global travel retail. So in that sense, premiumization, similarity there.
Right.
If you look at, again, from an India and travel retail, whiskey, Scotch is very big in travel retail. It's very big in India as well. So I think there are some similarities there.
Understand.
But again, in terms of, like I said, the regulatory environment in India is completely different from that in global travel retail.
If it's a perfect scenario of what the regulatory environment of most of the brand manufacturers are envisioning or expecting or looking at, then the level of investments and the level of opportunity as well as the level of growth for Alcobev companies would be far more across the...
Absolutely. I think with the improvements in ease of doing business, with consistency in policy, absolutely.
Yeah. How is it different in terms of what, from the role that you were doing earlier to the role that you're doing today? I want to kind of just get a little sense in terms of the leadership and the style as well. How's that experience and how's this experience in a very different, broader sense?
Look, I think first of all, it is Bacardi, whether it was Bacardi Global Travel Retail or Bacardi India.
Right.
And therefore, when I look at both experiences, our purpose is the same, making moments matter. In terms of values, Bacardi's values, we call them the 3 Fs: family, founders mentality, and fearless. And that remains consistent across. When I talk about family, we're a family-owned company. But more importantly, it's, that family spirit across the company, which is, I'll give you an example. So, for example, the word that we use for each other is primos, which means brother, sister, cousin in Spanish.
Okay.
The word employee is banned.
Oh, nice.
So we call each other primos. Prima female and primo male.
Understand.
And that's something that's really unique. We hold each other accountable like you would in a family. We have the same caring that you would as a family would. So I think that's number one, family. Founders mentality is, it's that entrepreneurial mindset. Treat this company like it's your own. What would you do if this is your company? Empowering primos, helping them, with that empowerment to make bold decisions, to go and grab any opportunity, to really build our brands with the long term in mind. And then fearless is about boldness, taking risks, really looking at what opportunities we can uncover. So I think all of us here at Bacardi live by those values. 3 Fs, as we call them: family, founders, and fearless.
Interesting that you were speaking about like entrepreneurship as well. That's what. Do you think it's easy to be a startup in today's day and age in the Alcobev industry today, or is it an uphill task as an entrepreneur?
I wouldn't be able to comment.
In general, from a business standpoint, is it a very difficult challenge for say, for example, someone who's watching this? If they are probably looking to create newer products, enter the industry and so on, then Is it a very uphill task, or it's something which is
I
doable?
really wouldn't be able to comment there because, one of the things is we entered the country 27, 28 years ago.
Understand.
And my experience has been in India back again for the last 2 years.
Hmm.
Um, I think there is a lot of opportunity, but I wouldn't be able to comment on, what it takes to be set up your own brand or whatever in the country as an entrepreneur.
Understand.
For us, when I say founders mentality,
Hmm.
it is about, in this company,
Hmm.
treating it like it were your own, having that mindset of, you know, pushing to see what you can achieve, um, enabling people or empowering them to say, hey, go for that opportunity.
In terms of being in this role, what have been your key learnings so far?
I moved from Dubai here in early 2023, and one of the things that I know it's taken us time to connect, and the reason for that is I first wanted to, just travel the country, um, meet our consumers, meet our customers, meet our teams, really listen to understand from them what are the opportunities, what are the challenges they face,
Right.
where can we help the commercial team, where can we help and support our customers. So I think I've probably traveled to all states at least a couple of times now. Met with most of our teams everywhere, including some of our co-packing locations and plants. And really, those visits, those travels, listening to the team, understanding what are the opportunities and challenges, helped shape our strategy, which we worked in early 2023. In 2023. And we took that back to the board of directors in 2023, the route forward for India. And one of my learnings has been that, there is incredible opportunity there for our brands. Um, we have a very committed and passionate set of primos. Um, we punch above our weight in terms of relationships with customers, with key customers. And, that really comes on the back of the passion, that spirit, the culture that our team has on ground. So all that put together, we took it back to the board in 2023 to chart out this course for us, which is, growing our top line 6x from 2019.
Interesting that you talk about this. What does a MD at your level really do in terms of the profile? I want to kind of give the viewers an understanding that naturally, I'm sure that you don't get into the day-to-day business because that's not really your role. What is it that you actually focus on in terms of the business as a
That's
leader?
a great question. I think, look, no day is the same, and there's never a dull moment. I think there are a few. Um, for me, culture, talent, empowering our teams. These are some of the areas that are really important. Yes, of course, there is strategy, there is performance management, and so on. But I really think that the heart of it is creating that environment in the organization to really help our primos thrive, flourish. See this as their own company, grow our brands in the right way. So I'd say it's a blend of culture, talent, really empowering teams, and that's really at the heart of what I spend most of my time doing.
I understand. What would you say your leadership style is?
In terms of leadership style, I'd say reflecting the values that the company has: family, fearless founders, really believing and bringing that to the fore. In terms of my mantra, I keep it simple. This is something that over the years has worked for me. Three parts to it. One is goal clarity, trust, and empowerment. I think what's important for me is having absolute goal clarity with the teams. What are we really setting out to achieve? What's our vision? What's our objective? And once we agree that, to really trust the team, empower them to get on and deliver.
Understand.
So I'd say those three, goal clarity, trust, and empowerment, And that works in the context of Bacardi's culture as well. When you talk about family, fearless founders. Um, yeah, so I'd say that is really
But does
the
it
core.
work both ways in terms of like vertically moving downwards as well and also upwards for you also
Absolutely.
from the clarity from the head office to what is it that you have to significantly achieve as a business?
Absolutely. And I think um, in 2019 we globally set out our vision,
Hmm.
and at that time, our CEO Mahesh Madhavan said that the next 10 years would be our best 10 as yet.
Understand.
So we have, our best 10 strategy,
Mm-hmm.
which was created by leaders across the business in 2010 of, how do we make the next 10 years, so 2030, the best 10 as yet. Um, and part of that was being absolutely clear on our goals and, what are the strategies to deliver that.
Understand. I mean, of course, Mahesh Madhavan now being from the India MD, of course, he's now moved up the ranks. It's great. How good it is for the India story.
I think a great question. Look, India has and is um, a great hub for global talent.
Mm.
In the last 5 years, more than 40 leaders have either been exported or imported from India.
Mm.
So it's one of our key pillars of talent development. So as a company in India, we're really focused on growing and developing our talent. We've got bespoke programs. We call them Becoming Bacardi. So when you join Bacardi, there's a program called Becoming Bacardi that we run for everybody who joins the company in India. Um, then we have something called Bacardi Ready, which is, as you grow in role to help you be ready for your next set of roles. We've got talent development programs around coaching, around, developing your career pathway. Um, so from that point of view, I think, as a global talent hub, India is really one of those that is contributing to global talent. And we're really proud of that, and we will continue that.
Understand. What is your near term and long term objective? Like, say, for example, 1 year and 5 years now for the company?
It goes back to what we call our best 10 strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2019, we set up the best 10, and as part of that, we wanted to grow our business in India 6x from where we were, and we're very much on track with that.
Understand. And that is, but again, if you're growing at 6x, then that's 2019 to what?
2030.
2030. Okay. And in terms of near term objective, from your personal perspective, like what do you see the India business to be at?
I mean, if you do the maths backwards, it's a strong double-digit growth. We're on track with that.
Bacardi as a company and what you guys are doing, but as you know that Bacardi is something which is synonymous with a lot of interesting products, especially quality, something in terms of what you call even breezer as well. Even today, I think most of the people, when you'd always talk about Bacardi, the first thing that would always come to mind is Bacardi breezer. And the tune as well. I still remember the first time I heard that tune as well. So I wanted to talk about products per se, not just from a product standpoint of what Bacardi is doing, in general. Also wanted to just understand from your point of view or your perspective that how the development also happens, and how interesting it is. I think I want to kind of start a little bit from a earlier perspective, because I know that one of the critical aspects of Bacardi cementing their image and their products into the mind of the consumer was by creating experiences. uh, you know uh, how much of that do you think resonates today with a consumer?
You're right. Bacardi, we were synonymous with great experiences. We launched in 1998 with what we had then called the Bacardi Blast. And then over the last 14, 15 years with Bacardi NH7 Weekender.
Yes.
And even on our other brands, when I look at Bombay Sapphire with Saw This Made This, Grey Goose with Grey Goose Le Voyage, Vive Le Voyage experiences. Similarly, most recently with Doers experiences and the Brian Adams concerts. So yes, experiential marketing has been really key for us over the last 20 plus years. I think that is going to just continue in importance, especially if you look at today's consumers.
Mhm.
Really, experience seeking. And we talked about the demographic dividend that we have,
Mm.
particularly the younger LDA plus consumers really look for experiences. So it's less about just the product,
Mhm.
but equally about the experience.
Right.
And we'll share with you the Bacardi 2025 cocktail report. And one of the things that we have learned is, from consumption of a product to curation of an experience.
Mm.
That's really what consumers are looking for.
Understand. Understand. But do you think that Bacardi was one of the few companies at that point of time who was doing this? Because I don't think so. There was anybody else who was actually creating that value at that point of time. Like for example, when you're saying the Blast, the NH Weekender, and like creating that experience, do you feel the same?
Bacardi has been at the forefront of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Understand. From a journey of a product, you know, you mentioning about like how it's not only about the cocktail, it's about the experience. How does a brand look at it from curating that journey?
How do you mean? How does a brand look?
For example, I mean, is it only like when, for example, a new product or when a product is discussed, then how is it that they actually curate an experience around it? Because it's a product which is kind of hinting or hitting something, some emotion or something like that.
So for us, if I look at it, and let me talk about Bacardi.
Hmm.
For us, the campaign is around do what moves you.
Hmm.
Our experiential property, let's talk about the most recent one, is called Casa Bacardi or House of Bacardi, Casa Bacardi
Right.
Experiences. And when you look at do what moves you, Bacardi has been synonymous with music,
Hmm.
with rhythm,
Hmm.
the music of rum, the rhythm of rum. And therefore, we put that together, which is it's a music experience with delicious cocktails, great engagement, wonderful merchandise. So you can,
Hmm.
buy a lot of merchandise at some of our Casa Bacardi events. So it's actually a 360. It's not just a music experience. It's great cocktails. It's great merchandise. Food. So, for example, in some of our Casa Bacardis, we've had really unique food.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just bringing all that together as a really compelling experience for consumers. And then, of course, we amplify that. Digitally, we talk about amplification of our events. So um, seen, experienced by few,
Mhm.
but seen by many. So I think that's another area where Bacardi has really made some strong progress over the last few years.
Understand. From a product portfolio perspective, can you give us an idea of how diverse that product portfolio is with Bacardi?
Okay. Yeah, so I think one of the things we're really proud about is our portfolio.
Mhm.
It spans multiple categories. And let me just start, when you talk about Grey Goose and super premium vodka, number one super premium vodka, when you talk about Bombay and number one premium gin, you talk about tequila, Patron tequila, the number one super premium tequila. We've recently launched Teelings, a premium plus Irish whiskey, and a very, very specific product, Teeling Small Batch Classic for the Indian palate, and the Teeling Single Malt. So that's an Irish whiskey.
Mhm.
Um, Doers, the fastest growing Scotch whiskey. And again, a real range, right from Doers White Label,
Mhm.
the entry level for Doers, to a Doers 8-year-old Japanese cask finished product, all the way up to a 36-year-old
Right.
double series, 36 Doers double 36, which is about, I think, 4.5 lakh rupees MRP.
Mhm.
So, a real ladder of premium products under Doers. Um, Martini, vermouth, sparkling wine. So, the list is really long and it's a product portfolio that we're very proud of. And all of them real gems in their spaces.
Understand. What is the fastest growing category when it comes to this portfolio and also in general from an industry perspective?
I think right now what we're seeing is agave, tequila. So I think there are three categories I would like to call out. I think agave, whiskey as a whole, and to some extent gin as well. So I would say these are the hot categories, but clearly agave or tequila is on fire. And for us, Patron as the number one super premium tequila in the country continues to really grow aggressively.
What do you think it makes it special?
Agave or Patron?
Patron.
Okay. Um, I think there are a few. Number one, I think, is the product quality. I mean, absolutely brilliant. I've had the privilege of, visiting the Hacienda Patron in Atotonilco in Jalisco in Mexico. It's about an hour and a half from Guadalajara. And everything that goes into making that product is absolutely special. So I'll start with, the agave. We have long-term contracts with the families that grow agave in the region, and 100% Blue Weber agave.
Yeah.
We have, and you've got to see the way, the agave, we wait for the right time to, harvest that. So the sugar content is at its absolute peak for us to make the most brilliant tequilas. If you look at in the Hacienda, when you cook the agave, and we've got, it's almost like a batch process that is the way we make it. And then, once you cook that agave, we have this process which is very unique called the Tahona mill, which is basically a volcanic rock, and it's like, the cooked agave is kind of crushed in that. Very artisanal. So, you're really using that volcanic rock, really, slow process. And then, of course, even in the packaging, over 60 hands go into crafting that bottle of Patron, whether it's, the cork, whether the label, the ribbon, the box, it's all done by hand. So really handcrafted, top quality. When you talk about Patron, and I think that really shines when you look at the range. Patron Silver, Añejo, Reposado, and we've just launched Patron El Cielo. One of the few tequilas that is, 4 times distilled, exceptionally smooth, exceptionally sweet taste. In the next couple of months, we're going to launch Patron El Alto, which is a blend of extra Añejo and Reposado tequila from the House of Patron, 100% Blue Weber, and really, blended and aged to perfection. It's the pinnacle of, aged tequilas, and that launches in, I think, the next month.
Understand.
So again, I think the quality of the product really shines through, and that's been a big factor in terms of Patron's growth across the world, and particularly now in India.
Understand. What is the percentage growth year on year for the category in India currently?
Oh, very strong double digits.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a percentage exact number, but very strong double digits.
Understand. What do you think about a lot of the tequilas, which, of course, because the category has kind of has taken off, there are a lot of Indian tequilas as well, which have naturally, with plantations across whatever down south as well, some close to the west as well. What do you think about that? There's a huge difference in the quality?
I won't be able to comment.
Okay. In general, from a category perspective,
I think the category has room for a lot of brands. But yeah, of course, there's a difference between local agave and, from Jalisco, 100% Blue Weber, the process that we use for Patron. Yeah, so I think, can't comment about the local agave brands, but definitely when you look at tequila worldwide, Patron is the leader in that category.
But in that as well, then do you see a lot of it also being like kind of sipping tequila as well is something which is, of course, cocktail is one aspect of it, which naturally has always been there, but there is a category which is sipping tequilas as well.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's what has made agave or tequila really popular, which is it's very versatile. It's one of the few categories where you've got a silver as well as an aged. It's one of the few categories where, you play in cocktails, so let's say margaritas and so on, and then also like El Alto, a really wonderful sipping tequila. So with Patron, we play that entire space from great cocktails to, sipping neat on the rocks. That versatility in the category, white and aged, that versatility in usage, cocktails to sip, that's really one of the big factors that's driving tequila.
I understand. I want to talk a little bit about legacy as well. Of
Hmm.
course, the am I correct in understanding that that is a whiskey that has been 100% made in India?
Yes,
Or
made in India, for India, by India.
okay.
We've had support from our global team.
Mhm.
Obviously, we have over 160 years of blending and working with liquids. So we've got a
Mhm.
global team. So, for example, Stephanie McLeod, our from Doers,
Mhm.
our master blender, has been involved in the development of the liquid, but it was tested, researched, developed for India by India.
Understand. Can you take us through how the journey of development really works when you're creating a product like that?
Absolutely. I think it starts with putting the consumer at the heart of it.
Okay.
So when we looked at, the consumer, one of the things was very clear that whiskey in India,
Mhm.
whiskey is about 70% of total spirits.
Right.
And within that, we saw an opportunity with the consumer in the premium end of it.
Mhm.
It's about 20 million cases, that segment, growing.
Mhm.
And like I said earlier, premiumization, we're seeing a trend where consumers are trading up from the lower end into the premium segment.
Mhm.
So, very clearly, there was consumer feedback around, energy in that segment. We then looked at liquid development, and
Mhm.
we're fortunate in that we've got great talent both here in India as well as with Stephanie. Um, we looked at creating a blend, and we tested quite a few blends to arrive at, we believe is the best proposition.
Mhm.
And Legacy is a wonderful blend of Indian grain, Indian malt, and Scottish malt. And it's that trinity of the three that really works.
Mhm.
Indian grain, Indian malt, Scottish malt. That gives Legacy its very unique taste. And we've had some amazing feedback. Of course, we did the consumer testing, but we've also had very good trade and consumer feedback.
Mhm.
Particularly initially from the trade, where the liquid is really appreciated, the blend is really appreciated,
Understand.
and we're seeing some strong results with consumers as well now.
Understand. What are the products that it is competing against?
It's in the premium IMFL whiskey segment.
Mhm.
So yeah, that would include all the brands in that segment.
Understand. You won't name them. I can understand. Uh, can we expect that category to get a little bit more broader, both horizontally and vertically, from Bacardi's perspective?
When you say vertically, I get by price, but
Yes,
when you say horizontally, how do you mean?
by launching more products in that
In the
category.
premium IMFL
Yes,
whiskey?
yes.
No, in the premium IMFL whiskey, our focus is going to be on Legacy.
Okay.
Um, are there opportunities to drive variants? Absolutely, that is something that we're open to all opportunities there.
Understand. I wanted to know from your perspective, I what is your favorite Bacardi product?
Well, there'll be quite a few to choose from. I don't think I would have one favorite. I think it depends on the occasion.
Okay.
When I'm out in bars with friends, with colleagues, I would say Patron, particularly
Mhm.
prejudice towards the Patron Picante, which is a
Mhm.
spicy margarita. If hosting at home with close friends, I would say Doers 12 with ice and water.
Understand. Right. From a perspective of development as well, I know that you mentioned that there was involvement naturally from the master blender, which essentially it is required. But do you see products that can possibly be created in India to also be exported to other countries?
Absolutely. I think, when you look at, let's say, Japan and you talk about Japanese whiskey, when you look at Mexico and talk about tequila,
Hmm.
um, I see no reason why, Indian products are behind the curve on that. I think there is an opportunity for us with made in India products capturing global attention.
Right. What do you think about a lot of these Indian whiskeys that are making global waves? across the board.
I think it's a very positive phenomenon. You're referring to the Indian single malts.
Yes.
Yes, it's a very positive. Early days, a few years, but it's a very positive development, I would say.
But I mean, again, from my perspective, I kind of also think that it is also a strategy where they're using a lot of small batch whiskey. And again, I'm just like throwing this out there, where they do a lot more of limited editions in terms of small batch whiskey and not making it available to the Indian consumer, and more of it is like more for export.
I wouldn't be able to comment on that. I mean, I've seen a lot of Indian single malts in the local market,
right?
But I wouldn't be able to comment on what the supply.
I understand, but from a general business perspective, do you think that's it's a strategy that a lot of brands kind of use?
I wouldn't be able to comment. We really, I mean, for us right now in the Make in India and vocal for local, it's legacy. We launched it in 22-23.
Yes.
So it's been about a year and a half. We took the first few months to make sure, we went into 3 states. Then we expanded to a few more, and this year we've gone to more states. So our real focus is on legacy, which we know is we've got a winner on our hands in terms of the product.
I understand.
And we're making some great share gains in key states.
Okay. Can we talk about shares? Can you give us an idea about the markets of?
Yep. So, we're doing, if you look at the states, typically, what we're seeing is we're achieving the market share that we set out to achieve. Particularly what we're seeing is that in the stores that we are present in, our shares are double the national average. We have, we're still in the distribution phase. So we're not rolled out everywhere. We're building distribution, and in the stores that we are present in, it's 2x that of the average national share that we have. And in the stores that we activate, it's almost 10x. So we've got some real strong growth drivers identified. Of course, the brand is more established in the early states that we went into, which was Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, and Telangana. Those were the first states. So the brand is more developed there. But we're seeing very strong positive signs from the states that we've been into recently as well. And
what are the volumes that we are possibly looking at? Are there any targets that Bacardi has set out for legacy?
I won't be able to share the target numbers, but we are well on track with what we had forecast.
Understand.
I think one of the key things for us is, this is a strong value pool, but it's going to take time to build the brand. Because you have brands that have been present in this category for almost 20 years.
Right.
So we know that there is opportunity. We know that the liquid is working. We have our marketing mix, having rolled out in a phased manner, we understand what works in our marketing mix. And then, on track to achieve what we set as objectives.
I understand. What is the objective behind a brand to actually create variants? Why do they do that?
I think it is to address different consumer needs. So let me give you an example. I'll talk about Bacardi rums. And we were talking about product development. Now, one of the things that we saw in the research, so we spend a lot of time, understanding consumer trends of flavors, what flavors are working. And one of the trends we saw was, sweet and spicy as flavors starting to evolve. And again, keeping the consumer at the heart, we developed a product called Mango Chili, Bacardi Mango Chili. So unique, sweet and spicy, leveraging that insight. Now, to your question around, why do you develop a variant? There's a real opportunity that we found. So today we have, let's say, a Bacardi Limon, but there was clearly a consumer that was talking about, I'd like something sweet and spicy, a dual flavor. There's a drinking ritual that, they were talking about. And, when we put that together, we said, hey, look, Bacardi Mango Chili is an opportunity that consumers resonate with. We tested that. And B, there's a commercial proposition. So one of the reasons is, I think, evolving flavor choices amongst consumers. I give you another example, Bacardi Mango Peach. Again, the same insight that it's not just a singular flavor. It's a dual, like earlier we had Bacardi Watermelon Mint. So from a single flavor, there's more flavor experimentation. And So this year we launched Breezer Mango Peach
Right.
as well.
Right. But how much percentage of that consumer is then addressed when you when you expand that portfolio? Like say for example, if it's a Bacardi rum, say you're addressing maybe like say 50% of the market or 50% of the consumer. Then when a variant is launched, then what is it? 10%, 15%, or
It varies, and I think it depends. So you could okay. So a couple of ways to grow, right? One
Hmm.
is you get new consumers who were not consuming, get them to consume.
Hmm.
The other is same consumer, new occasion. So you
Right.
were not present in a certain occasion, you enter an occasion.
Hmm.
So both ways are possible. And therefore it depends on there is no one universal number of what a variant could be. It'll
Understand.
really depend on the source of business, new consumer versus same consumer, repeat occasions.
Understand. Are you seeing more percentage of the newer consumers getting more attracted towards cocktails and not per se spirits as such?
Yes, we are seeing LDA plus consumers a lot more experimentative,
Hmm.
and that is driving this whole. And more than experimentative, they're looking for curation, not just a product. So when you look at the bars, or when you look at the way people are drinking, it's a lot to do with there's a whole cocktail culture that has really exploded. I mean,
Hmm.
various hypotheses of why. Somebody mentioned this to me, and it's possibly true that in COVID, everybody was at home and either became a baker or a chef or a yoga expert or mixologist.
Hmm.
And a lot of people therefore experimented with cocktails at home.
Hmm.
There was a lot of online searches for cocktails. Secondly, the revolution in the bar culture. You look at some of the bars that are coming up, really offerings that are international standards.
Right.
You look at Sidecar in Delhi, I mean, world class, absolutely. You look at here in Gurgaon, Lair, again, world class. So I think a couple of factors have driven this.
Understand. But is there a certain demographic that is kind of looking for these sort of experimentative cocktails, or is it?
I think it's not just the LDA plus. I think it's more broad based. Particularly, I would say we saw it start in metros,
Mhm.
but now we're seeing it rapidly in even in the smaller towns,
Mhm.
um, uh, smaller cities. A few weeks ago, not a few weeks, last week, I was in Jaipur, and you go to Johari or you go to Native,
Mm.
the cocktail menu is brilliant. And then you look around at the audience, it's not just the LDA plus, you've got other consumers there as well.
Understand. How much of that do you think is occasion driven as well? From someone who's possibly like a regular spirits consumer. Like it could be anything. It could be, of course, like your rums, your whiskeys, and XYZ, and then they kind of experiment using cocktails depending on the occasions.
I think depending on the venue and the occasion, so
Hmm.
both.
Hmm.
You're right. It depends on the venue and the occasion.
Hmm. What is the consumer pattern, and like as you mentioned, like from a tier one to a tier two city, and then as it's kind of percolating downwards, do you see that trend rapidly growing? And can you give us an example of what could be that consumer preference from a tier one metro to a tier two metro?
I think at the top end of bars and consumers,
Hmm.
there is very little difference, Bhavya. You know, and a top end bar in Guwahati or a top end bar in an Indore or a top end bar in a Jaipur,
Hmm.
I would say similar to the bars in Mumbai or Bangalore, top end. So I think there's much more common than we imagine.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I give the example of Jaipur. The cocktail list at Native
Hmm.
is as good as any you get in Bombay or Delhi. So at the top end, I don't see a difference.
Understand.
I think where we are, I think where the trends are picking up is probably in um, the mid size, the mid range accounts. There
Hmm.
you're seeing a lot more. If earlier it was just a long drink, I am starting to see a lot more cocktails come up in menus.
Mm.
If earlier it was just a gin and tonic, or just a Bombay and tonic, or just a Doers and soda, I'm now seeing great cocktails, or one or two cocktails with the Bombay Sapphire, one or two cocktails with the Doers Highball. So I think
Mm.
it's there. It's
Understand.
coming. Of course, not at the scale in the metro, but it's coming.
Understand. From a volumes perspective as well, like for metro to much lesser popular, whatever populous city, how does that dynamic work for a brand like Bacardi?
Obviously, the metros are going to be a big contributor, definitely. But the growths in some of the smaller cities that we're seeing are really explosive. Really
Mm.
explosive.
Understand. But and do you think that at some point of time they would possibly like match up to what the top line airline cities are, or do you think that's
I think
still
on some brands, yes. In some brands,
like?
yes. When you look at some of, let's say, the Bacardi rums, um, when you look at the entry level whiskies,
Mhm.
I think it'll, at this point of time, it's for a super premium product. I'd say no, there's a gap.
Mhm.
But when you look at Bacardi rums, when you look at entry level whiskies, absolutely. In the
Understand.
near future, you could see,
Right. What do you think is Bacardi's most popular product? From both, from your perspective, from the brand's perspective, and also from the
globally
minds
or
of
in
the
India.
consumer in India.
I'd have to say Bacardi rum, because it's been
Mm.
around the longest.
Okay.
It's what, 97, 98, so more than 26 years, 27 years. So yeah, Bacardi rums would definitely be up there.
Okay. Because I mean, like,
We That said, and again, you're aware of 30 best bars, right?
yes.
So they published, what's popular in consumers and customers.
Yes.
I'm really proud to share that our brands, whether it was Bacardi rum in rums, was number one.
Mhm.
Grey Goose was number one in vodka, and I'm not saying super premium vodka, vodka.
Mhm.
Bombay was number one in gin. Patron was number one in tequila. Doers moved up a few ranks to number three.
Mm.
So, I think in their categories, our brands are leaders. But if you were to say overall across, given the fact that Bacardi rum has been in the country for 27
Mm.
plus years. So let's say Bombay again, maybe 10 years. So I
Mm.
think from that point of view, Bacardi rum.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the minds of, I think in my mind, a lot of it also in terms of Bacardi being able, placing to where Bacardi is also, I think it's Breezer, you know, and I mean, I know, I understand in terms of numbers, it's a lot different. Maybe I don't know, but the minds of the consumer, like when they always think first Bacardi, I think a rum and a Breezer kind of what you call comes in as a tie, because I think any consumer from a younger audience also, if you see and you ask them, okay, what do you think about Bacardi, they'll be like, oh, Breezer, dude.
I think the question is a bit, when you say popular, it's very difficult. What do you mean by popular?
Right.
Most mentioned, most recollected. Yeah.
Right.
So Breezer is popular as well.
Understand. Right. How difficult it is to anybody. I mean, I think what is the market share of Bacardi Breezer today in India in its category segments?
90% plus, because we are
That's what.
one of the main players in the RTD segment.
How difficult it is, do you think, for anyone else to? I mean, people have tried. What do you think sets the Breezer apart?
Okay, I think first of all, I mean, all credit to when it was launched in, I think, 2002, 3.
Hmm.
So more than 20 plus years ago. I think it really pioneered the category, right?
Hmm.
It was the first. Great liquid, great position. And I think over the years, we've invested in that, positioning, invested, in terms of retail with the visi coolers, the visibility, the activation. So I think it's been a all-round reason of why why Breezer is where it is.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of how difficult is it for someone else, I can't comment.
Hmm.
But I can tell you that with Breezer, we had that winning recipe. The liquid, the proposition, early entrant, And really we've cemented our place in that category, and all credit to the team over the last 20 years, 20 plus years in that.
How often does Bacardi revisit about, like you mentioned about like newer flavors, right, in product development? How often does Bacardi revisit that conversation to identify when that portfolio needs to get broadened?
So
For
it's an
Breezer is
ongoing process, and
Okay.
it's not just broadened. I mean, we need to be honest. We also discontinue. If a flavor is not working, we discontinue it. So for us, it's an annual refreshment. You keep looking at what are the flavors that are performing,
Understand.
and then the tail you exit, and you get the new flavors in. So it's an ongoing process. It's not
Okay.
we need to launch X a year or Y a year.
Hmm.
You just it's ongoing.
So basically, like someone somewhere is what you call in your lab is like sitting, and then there are like 50 flavors which are constantly being identified, and
There is a
out of
pipe.
that,
So we have what we call, we do environment scanning. We work with our partners, our flavor houses. We work with the consumer research agencies to understand what's trending. And some of that you'll see in our cocktail 2025, Bacardi Cocktail 2025 report. So based on those trending flavors, our team in supply chain is, experimenting, trying out new things. So there's a hopper of ideas.
Understand. What are your thoughts on the newer category of, no calorie and low alcohol category?
It's an interesting space, but I think it's early days in India as yet. Um, we are present sorry, you're talking about no calorie or no alcohol?
Both.
Okay. So we are present in the no alcohol space with quite a few propositions.
Right.
We have a tie-up with Del Monte with the Bacardi mixers. Again, out there, we had it in the bottle format. Now we're in the can format. So I think early days, I think it was launched a couple of years ago. Similarly, we have a tie-up with Jimmy's. We have a Doer's old-fashioned mixer. So I'd say early days, growing, but still small.
Yeah, because I think internationally, like when you travel a lot, you get to see a lot of these premixes, and some of them are really good. Especially if you, for example, in Japan, a lot of these Suntory's products, the premixes like the highballs XYZ, they're really good. Even like the gin premixes when you travel down Europe as well, or even US for that matter. Do you see that as a category in India growing quite a bit as well from a product perspective?
Yes, but a very small base.
Even like maybe like 5 years down the line, do you think it'll still be?
Yeah, we're exploring opportunities there, and we're keeping an eye on it. But at this point of time, it's much smaller.
Right. No, not from Bacardi's perspective. I'm seeing a category in an industry perspective.
Yeah, I think it's got a way to develop compared to the UK or the US.
Understand. Right. Just last couple of questions. One about what you call niche products, niche segments as well. I know that
Like
niche segments like craft spirits and so on. From that perspective, do you think that is also a category which possibly can do a lot more, because more and more manufacturers, more and more products are being introduced in such categories and also being marketed like that?
Look, I think this whole craft phenomenon, as it calls it comes with a few questions in my mind. I think first of all, it's good that we're seeing a lot more activity in the sector. That's always good for the industry. It's good for the consumer. It's good for all of us. I think for me personally, when you say craft, you've got to be careful. Look, I consider Patron to be a craft product. We just spoke about, how we have long-term commitments with Agave farmers, how we, wait 7 to 8 years for the plant to, reach its full potential. The Tahona rock process, 60 hands. So in my mind, Patron is a craft product. It depends on how you define craft. Bombay Sapphire, if you look at the story of vapor infusion and how we make we vapor infuse the gin, you've got to go to Lavistoke where you see the basket and the copper basket where each of the 10 botanicals is loaded, and all those 10 botanicals are sustainably sourced from different parts of the world, by farmers, by indigenous farmers. So again, for me, Bombay is the original craft gin, if you look at it. So I think we've got to be careful about how we define craft, number one. In terms of what you're seeing in India right now, whether it's, a lot of smaller gins coming up, I think that's good for the category, good for the industry. But again, and that's a space that we're watching. For us, our focus is, the vocal on local, which is legacy for us, which is our own homegrown for India by India whiskey. So our focus right now is on legacy in terms of crafted in India products.
Understand. But from a category perspective, I mean, I know that, for example, whiskey is something which is, as you mentioned rightly, that 70% is of Indian market is mostly consumed in terms of whiskey. Naturally, beer and vodka also have kind of like plateaued, but then flavored vodka is something which is kind of showing a little bit of an uptrend. And then, would you call from a gin perspective, at least, I think ahead of tequila, is my understanding correct that that's one of the highest growing or fastest growing categories in India?
From the data we have, tequila is growing faster than gin.
Okay.
And in terms of vodka, Grey Goose is growing significant double digits.
Understand. And as a category as well, you think that vodka is growing?
No, as a category, vodka is growing slower than gin.
Yeah, it's plateaued, right? If in certain sense. Great. All right. Thank you so much, Vinay, for this conversation, and great to understand the perspective from the product perspective as well, of how like products are developed from a brand owner's standpoint as well. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Bhavya. Great conversation.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Yeah.